I got a really interesting question in one of my videos, and I know for a fact that there are a lot of people who are wondering what the answer to this question is. So the question is, what percentage of assets do you suggest in Bitcoin today? So how much of your portfolio should be in Bitcoin if you wanted to start accumulating today, or if you've been holding for a long time? I'm going to talk to both of those audiences. So if you've started accumulating Bitcoin recently versus if you started accumulating years ago, doesn't matter either way. This will apply to both of you. So let's get started. Some of the numbers in this video are going to be a little bit confusing, so make sure you watch all the way till the end to get a full explanation. And if you want to book a one-on-one meeting with me, if you have any questions, if you have any comments that you want to leave, if you want more of an explanation on this, there's a link in the description below where you can book a paid meeting with me. I made this spreadsheet about a year ago that explains to you how much of your portfolio will be in Bitcoin if you start accumulating today, or if you get to a certain amount of Bitcoin today. So whenever you get to that percentage, after that, how long will it take for Bitcoin to be, let's say, 99% of your portfolio? So in this scenario, we have a 20-year time horizon. So let's say you have a $1 million portfolio, you put $10,000 into Bitcoin, you put $990,000 in stocks. That would put you in the 1% Bitcoin, 99% stocks category. What we're assuming here is that you're going to hold your portfolio for 20 years. You're not going to rebalance. You're just going to hold on to whatever you have, and you're not going to change the allocation. You're going to let the market decide what happens to your portfolio. So if you have a 20-year time horizon, 35% returns for the next 10 years for Bitcoin, 30% returns for the next 10 years after that for Bitcoin, and we'll assume 7% returns for stocks, which I think is pretty generous. If you consider inflation, I think it would be lower, but let's go with 7%. So we see here initial Bitcoin allocation. This is your percentage allocation. We go all the way from 0 to 100%. So we go with 0% Bitcoin and 100% stocks. So in the beginning, you'd have, so if you have 0% Bitcoin, 100% stocks, you would have $0 in Bitcoin, of course, in 20 years, and you would have $403.87 in stocks. This is with a $0 allocation to Bitcoin today versus a $100 allocation to stocks. In the next row, row number 9, we see 1% to Bitcoin, 99% to stocks. You can see here that with 1% allocated to Bitcoin, your portfolio in 20 years after this 20-year time horizon would be 60.39% in Bitcoin. So in this case, your Bitcoin would be worth $609.75, while your stocks are worth only $399.84. And this is with a 1% allocation. So if you put 1% in Bitcoin today, you're not going to lose much. Let's say in this case, you would lose about 1% of your portfolio. So if you have, let's say, $100,000 in your portfolio, it would go to $399,084 in stocks versus $403,087 in stocks. But you would also have $609,750 worth of Bitcoin. And I think what makes a massive difference here is your final portfolio value. So if you have 0% allocated to Bitcoin and 100% allocated to stocks, you would end up with $403 in 20 years, $403.87. If you have 1% allocated to Bitcoin, your portfolio would more than double. But if it doesn't work out, you would lose 1%. So either you stand to gain 150% on top of whatever the portfolio value is, or you lose 1%. This is a massive asymmetric opportunity, and most people are ignoring it. Let's say we go to 2%. You would end up with 75% in Bitcoin, 24% in stocks, $1,615 portfolio. Your Bitcoin would be worth $1,200, more than $1,200. Your stocks would be worth only $395. So let's go through that again. Today, you put $2 in Bitcoin, $98 in stocks. In 20 years, you would have $395 worth of stocks and $1,200 worth of Bitcoin. Most people aren't even thinking that this could happen. Most people are thinking that Bitcoin is a scam. Most people are thinking that Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme. They think it's going to zero. So most people have this portfolio. Most people actually aren't even holding stocks. They're actually just holding cash. The people around the world who don't have access to the financial system, they can't even hold stocks. So they're just holding on to dollars. It doesn't matter how much you have. Eventually, whatever amount you have will be 99% of your portfolio. So we can see here, if you start with 10%, you'd end up with 94% in Bitcoin in 20 years, and you'd only have 5.6% in stocks. Your portfolio would be worth $6,460. So up here with 0% allocation to Bitcoin, you'd have $403 in the end. But down here in row 18, if you allocate 10% to Bitcoin, you'd end up with $6,460 in your portfolio rather than $403. Your portfolio would increase by 16 times. Now, if we scroll further down, if you start with 20%, here's where the numbers start getting crazy. We can see here you would increase your portfolio's value by over 32 times. So if you start with a 0% allocation, regardless of what you do, eventually your stocks are going to have Bitcoin exposure. And even if you want to get away from it, you're not going to be able to. So my suggestion here is get to Bitcoin before all these companies figure it out, before all these companies figure out that they should have 100% of their savings in Bitcoin. They will do this. It's just a matter of time. They're going to do this. If you have a 100% allocation to Bitcoin, you'll end up with $61,000 in your portfolio in 20 years, while with a 100% allocation to stocks, you'd only end up with $403. These are just the final numbers here. We can see 1% would give you a 60% allocation, 5% would give you an 88% allocation, 10% would give you a 94% allocation. The way that I see it, the higher your allocation to Bitcoin in the beginning, the further ahead in the race you are. Eventually, everybody's portfolio is going to be close to 100% in Bitcoin because Bitcoin is the only asset that we need. So if you're convicted enough to put 20% of your portfolio in Bitcoin, you're going to get to 97% within 20 years. If you put 1% of your portfolio in Bitcoin, you're going to take 20 years to get to 60%. And then from 60%, we'll just scroll down. From 60%, it'll take you another 20 years to get to 99.56%. On the other hand, if you just start with 60%, you're getting a 20-year head start compared to somebody who starts with 1% of their portfolio. At the end of the day, the best thing that you can do is just accumulate as much Bitcoin as you can. Bitcoin is not going to stop for you. It doesn't matter whether you have some or not. Bitcoin is going to $1 million. It's going to $10 million. It's going to $100 million because the US dollar can be created out of thin air while Bitcoin can't. If you can get to the point where you have the conviction to put 50% of your portfolio in Bitcoin today, your portfolio's value is going to increase by about 75 times if things go the way that I think they will. If you just hold on to stocks, I think it's a losing game at this point because stocks aren't really increasing in value. They're just matching inflation. With Bitcoin, you're getting this asset, which gives you a massive, massive return, which will get you ahead of money printing. It'll get you ahead of inflation. It'll get you ahead of debasement. And if you're at the point where you can put 100% of your assets in Bitcoin compared to 0% of your assets in Bitcoin, you're going to get a over 150 times increase in profits over the next 20 years. To me, that's just absolutely insane. So no matter what you do, start with at least something. You don't need to put 10% of your portfolio into Bitcoin. You don't need to put 50% of your portfolio into Bitcoin. Start with at least 1%. Start putting $1 a day into Bitcoin. Whatever you want to do, just start. Start allocating something. Because at some point, whatever you put towards your portfolio is going to be 99% of your portfolio.